The girl stood frozen in the hospital hallway, staring at a photograph that shouldn't exist. Her hands trembled. The single dad beside her felt his chest tighten as security guards started moving closer. Something from her past had just caught up with them, and whatever it was about to change everything they thought they knew. Before we go any further, if stories about quiet kindness, unexpected connections, and ordinary people doing extraordinary things touch your heart, you might want to subscribe to True Kindness. Tales, feel free to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments as we go, because stories like this are meant to be felt together. Years earlier, life for the single dad had settled into a rhythm that was simple but heavy. He lived in a modest suburban neighborhood, where lawns were trimmed on Saturdays and neighbors waved politely but rarely talked much. His mornings started before sunrise, packing lunches, tying shoes, and convincing his sleepy son that school really did matter. His evenings ended with laundry, homework spread across the kitchen table, and the low hum of the television filling the quiet. It wasn't the life he imagined when he was younger, but it was honest, and it was theirs. Money was always tight. He worked long hours at a local warehouse, a job that left his back aching and his hands rough. Still, he never complained, at least not out loud. What he did complain about, often jokingly, was how empty the house felt when his son stayed over at a friend's place. The silence reminded him of everything he'd lost and everything he still had to protect. One rainy evening, as he was driving home from work, he noticed a girl sitting alone at a bus stop near the edge of town. She looked out of place. Too still. Too thin for the heavy hoodie she wore. Rain soaked her shoes, but she didn't move. He drove past at first, telling himself it wasn't his business. A mile later, guilt pressed down on him so hard he turned the car around. When he pulled up, she didn't look scared. She looked tired. He asked if she was okay, keeping his voice gentle. She hesitated, then said she didn't know where else to go. No family, no address she could name with certainty. Just a few scattered memories and a worn backpack that held everything she owned. He didn't invite her into the car right away. He called the local shelter, then child services, doing everything he thought he was supposed to do. The answers were slow and vague. Beds were full. Records didn't match anything in their system. When he asked the girl how old she was, she shrugged. She thought maybe 16, maybe 17. Her past was a blur of foster homes, road trips at night, and promises that never stuck. Something about her reminded him of his own son on the worst days, when fear sat just beneath the surface. Against his better judgment, and with 1,000 worries racing through his mind, he offered her a place to stay for the night. Just until morning, he told himself. That night turned into another, then another. Paperwork moved slowly, and no one seemed to know where the girl truly belonged. She was quiet, polite, and grateful in a way that broke his heart. She helped with dishes without being asked, and always offered to watch his son so he could run errands. Slowly, laughter returned to the house. Not loud laughter, but the kind that sneaks up on you and reminds you what normal feels like. The girl never talked about her past unless asked, and even then her answers were fragments. A memory of a large house with too many rooms, a song she remembered someone playing on the piano, a sense of being loved once, a long time ago, and then being very lost. He never pushed. He understood that some stories come out only when they're ready. Months passed. The girl enrolled in school under a temporary name. Teachers noticed she was bright but distracted, as if part of her was always listening for something. At night, she sometimes woke up from dreams she couldn't explain. The single dad would hear her pacing softly down the hall, and he'd sit at the kitchen table pretending to read until she felt safe enough to go back to sleep. Then one afternoon, everything shifted. The single dad collapsed at work. Stress, exhaustion, and untreated pain had finally caught up with him. At the hospital, the girl sat by his bed, refusing to leave. She filled out forms she barely understood and argued gently with nurses who tried to send her home. When a social worker asked who she was, she said with quiet certainty that she was family. While he slept, she wandered the hospital halls, drawn by something she couldn't name. That's when she saw it, a framed newspaper article near the administrative wing. The headline talked about a billionaire, philanthropist known for funding children's hospitals. Beneath it was an old photo, a younger man smiling stiffly for the camera, and beside him a little girl with familiar eyes. The recognition hit her like a wave. She stepped closer, heart pounding. A caption mentioned a tragedy from years ago. A child reported missing in the early 2000s after a private plane accident. The case was never fully resolved. Donations poured in. The story faded. But the face in the photo stayed with her. She didn't know how long she stood there before someone asked if she needed help. Security was called when she became visibly upset, insisting the girl in the picture was her. Voices rose. The single dad, now awake and weak but alert, heard the commotion and demanded to know what was happening. What followed was confusion, disbelief, and a flood of questions no one was prepared for. Records were pulled. Old DNA samples were mentioned. Lawyers and administrators spoke in careful tones. The girl clung to the edge of the bed, terrified that everything she'd finally found was about to be taken away. The tests took weeks. During that time, the man who might be her father arrived, surrounded by aides and legal counsel. He was older now, grief etched into his face. When he first saw her, his composure cracked. He spoke softly, afraid she might disappear if he raised his voice. The girl listened. She asked questions. She remembered things she hadn't remembered before. A piano song, a bedtime story, a nickname no one else had ever used. Slowly, the truth settled into place. Through it all, the single dad stayed in the background, feeling smaller by the day. He knew what this meant. He had given her safety, not a future of limitless resources. He prepared himself for goodbye long before anyone said the word. But kindness has a way of reshaping expectations. The billionaire didn't see a man who had overstepped. He saw someone who had done what money never could. He thanked him, not once, but over and over, for protecting his daughter when the world had failed her. He made it clear that no amount of wealth could erase the bond that had formed in that modest house. The girl was given a choice. No pressure, no deadlines. She chose connection over replacement. Her life expanded, but it didn't erase what came before. The single dad remained part of her world, not as a footnote, but as family. In the end, the greatest gift wasn't the reunion, the headlines, or the fortune that followed. It was the proof that a simple act of kindness, offered without expectation, can ripple farther than anyone imagines. One man stopped his car on a rainy night. One girl found a place to rest, and because of that, lives were stitched back together in ways no one could have planned. Stories like this remind us that kindness doesn't require perfect timing or perfect circumstances. It just asks us to notice, to care, and to act when our hearts tell us to. You never know who might be standing at the edge of your world, waiting for a moment of compassion to change everything. If this story moved you, share your own moments of kindness in the comments. You never know who might need to hear them today.